Our old wide receiver trio, if you guys haven't checked it out already, Harry Douglas, Roddy White, and Julio Jones started a really cool podcast called The Legacy Locker Room. Go check that out this week, Jeff. And I feel like, I said this last week too, but I feel like we can probably dedicate one podcast episode just dissecting everything that they talked about because they're dropping a lot of content out there. So basically, this week's episode was geared towards Julio Jones's departure from Atlanta. He was talking about the season where DQ was fired, and he was kind of being that vocal locker room guy saying, hey, let's go fight for our coach. We can't let him down like this. And he was very vocal about wanting Quinn to stay, saying that the vets need to take accountability. It's not on DQ, it's on us. So he even mentioned that he was playing through injury, fighting for his head coach. Jeff, throughout the years, Julio got over $125 million from Atlanta in 11 years. A lot of people look at this, and basically the bottom line here was Julio Jones, after that season, after that 2020 season, wanted to meet face to face with Arthur Blank to discuss his future, and Arthur Blank would not take the meeting with him. Do you think that's a problem?
Uh, I don't. Ultimately, there are, 5 to 6 people between Julio Jones and Arthur Blank. Yeah, Blank's the owner. He signs the paychecks that get direct deposited, but he's not a day-to-day hands-on type of guy, right? Yes, he comes down in the third quarter every week. He's a pretty prominent person as far as when you think of the Atlanta Falcons, you immediately think of Arthur Blank. Like, I get all of that. I think when you look at it or you listen to this podcast, they're bringing up a lot of grievances and things that aren't going to change. And you're giving a lot of people, like, you're opening, especially with Julio, he's ripping open some old wounds from people who have kind of moved past. Because when he left, people were really bitter. And I honestly don't understand why. Atlanta clearly got the best of his years. And when he left here, he was never the same guy. He was never healthy. He didn't produce. And so it's almost like one of those, like, you marry the hot girl, coming out of college, you get her for the 20s and 30s, and you get her for the first half of the 40s, and then you move on. And you don't have to watch her age. You don't have to watch her get bitchy. You don't have, you get to upgrade, right? Which is what the Falcons did, right? Like, that's what the Falcons did. And in this case, you didn't have to deal with all of those other things, right? You got to upgrade to the hot 25-year-old and kind of repeat that process. And so for me, you had sent me the tweet earlier this week from the Dukes and Bell show, where they talked about how greedy Julio was and how he's the reason that they didn't win a title, which is beyond fucking ridiculous. And for two guys in Dukes and Bell, by the way, who make almost $500,000 a year each, okay, their producers make somewhere between $45,000 and $60,000 a year. For those two morons to call anybody fucking greedy is absolutely absurd. As an NFL guy, you only have a short window to get paid and make money. Most of those guys don't last 4 years. So if Julio, who was arguably the best wide receiver in the league for about a 7-year period, let's remember he's the only NFL receiver in NFL history to have at least 1,350 yards for 7 consecutive years. 6 years, whatever it is. Still the only guy to do it. And he almost did it 6 straight years at 1,400. But remember that last year was at 2017, 2018. He ended with like 1,394 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nobody else has ever done that. So that guy gets to come to you and say, I want to be paid like the best wide receiver in the league every couple of years, because he fucking was. And so for anybody to, here we are almost 10 years later, for them to bring, to kind of rehash that shit, just let it. It's not going to change anything. Right, like it's not gonna, except it's gonna make people all pissed off again. Especially if you're a show like Dukes and Bell and you use your fucking time and your airwaves to come out and say we didn't win a title because of him, is fucking ridiculous.
We are
Absolutely ridiculous.
There's no way. I mean, we wouldn't be there in the Super Bowl without him. He made one of the greatest catches in history, and we still couldn't pull it off. It was because of him we got that far. He dismantled Green Bay the week before. And by the way, he was kind of dealing with a little injury too. So during the after the Packers game. So I mean, for them to come out and say something like that, that is beyond. I mean, it's one thing to say, the greedy take, whatever. I mean, you're an NFL player. You're going to ask for money and you're at the top
Yeah.
of your position and you have a short time window. I get that. I could get that side of people saying, like, perceiving it as greedy. But for you, the part that I took exception to say that we didn't win a Super Bowl because of him. Our team was freaking dysfunctional as hell in 2019. Julio was one of the locker room leaders, the guy people look up to. He's the only reason why we probably weren't like 4-12 at the time. So I think that that's a little bit crazy to me.
It's retarded. Like, for you to come out and say the guy who was the best at his position, who was your leader, who literally left everything he had on the field in this city. And again, go back and watch what happened when he went to Tennessee, when he went to Tampa. There was nothing. I don't know, what was it? The Eagles? Was that? I don't know why I feel like he went to somewhere else as well, right?
Tampa.
Like he had nothing left.
Yeah.
Nothing. That dude could barely walk when he walked out the door here, and people are really upset. Well, he left. I don't like that he went on Shannon's show and the hot mic caught him saying, "No, I'm getting the fuck out of Atlanta." Could you blame him?
Yeah.
Like, look at this. Three different head coaches, a fucking retard like Arthur Smith, who we've already talked about. Like, if you're Julio Jones at your end of your career, you want to go win a ring. How do you blame the guy for getting the fuck out of here when the Falcons had, like they've already shown, they had no idea what they were doing?
The part that irritated me about that too, Jeff, I don't know if you caught this part, but basically Julio, I think, was training somewhere in the Caribbean that off season, and Arthur Smith was FaceTiming him, and what do you call it? Those conversations didn't go well because Julio wanted to speak to AB, he wanted to speak to somebody else, and he just couldn't get a meeting after DQ and TD were fired. He wanted to discuss his future, have a face to face with the organization. I get that part of him too. But then Arthur Smith, after the guys basically like, hey, like Coach Smith, like I'm not talking to you. I got a bone to pick with the higher ups there. After that, Arthur Smith goes around and starts questioning his practice habits, apparently, which is freaking wild to me. Julio is one of the hardest working NFL receivers ever. He is far anything but a diva, skipping camp, all that stuff. Like that was not a great move on Arthur Smith's part. First year head coach, you're gonna go at your star player like that, someone beloved in the locker room. You gotta pick and choose your battles when you're a first year head coach, especially someone that has the reputation of a Julio Jones. We're not talking about like someone like Antonio Brown losing their freaking mind, burning off a part of his foot. This is Julio Jones we're talking about here. So it honestly, Jeff, at the end of the day, watching that whole thing, it broke my heart because basically I think Harry Douglas and Roddy White asked if there was anything that could be done to sort of repair the situation. Like, let's get if they can go down to Flowery Branch, go to games together, the three of them. And Julio Jones just said, nah, I'm cool. Like that part really stung just as a fan.
Yeah, it's when one of the top, arguably one of the top three players in franchise history is like, no, I don't want anything to do with him right now. It's tough. He will forever be a fan favorite. And you hate to see this side of it, but this is a business, and in a business, people get run over. Good people get run over in business, in every business, and the NFL is no different. And so, you hate to see it. You hate to see it be a guy that everybody really loved. Everybody loved watching. And you hate, again. We've talked about it on past episodes. It just sucks that Julio and Matt never got that ring, because it changes how people look at them. If Julio had that ring, we wouldn't have to hear that bullshit about how Mike Evans is better than Julio, right? Like, we would never have to hear that dumb shit, and yet we hear all the time. And I think those guys feel that too. Roddy wanted a ring, Julio wanted a ring. I can't say Harry did, because Harry wasn't here long enough. Harry's thing is he's an Atlanta boy, right? Like that kid, is a Clayco kid. So, it sucks for those guys. But for me, as far as that podcast goes, man, I hope that they start to turn and start to talk about other positive things, versus it just seems like they're just kind of rehashing some of their issues, and they're trying to make things known in a very public way, and I hope it doesn't get worse.
One of the other things they brought up, Jeff, is they think that the Falcons have trouble having the difficult conversations with their star players. Obviously, Roddy White didn't have a great ending. Julio Jones didn't have a great ending. And I know you said that maybe Arthur Blank, is so high up in the organization that he doesn't take a meeting with Julio, but like, do you think that part of what they were saying is true? Do the Falcons have difficulty in telling someone like Julio Jones, like, hey, your best years are behind you. We're looking to move on. Let's work together on a trade. We don't want to just send you to Cleveland. Like, are there conversations like that not happening in the organization?
I mean, I would assume they're not. I mean, you look at the way that it ended with the only person they did right by was Matt, right? Like that was the only guy. I mean, look what they just did to Grady. They were like, no, we're going to keep Big O and get rid of you. Like they do those things to their elite guys, with the exception of Matt. At least with Matt, they try to go out and find the best offensive line possible. Now, it turned out it went to shit when he got there. But the year coming out of that prior year, the Colts had had Quentin Nelson was the best guard in the NFL for damn near 10 years. And all of a sudden Matt Ryan gets in and the dude can't fucking block anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like, it seemed to be the one guy they tried to do right by. And everybody else, I think that's why everybody else feels slighted, to be honest with you, right? Because they saw them, put Matt in a really good situation. But you could also argue on the flip side, they tried to put Julio in a really good situation, sending him to Tennessee, with Derrick Henry and some of those guys. They had the number one offense the year before, and maybe Julio doesn't see it that way. But ultimately, stop hiring guys who can't relate to men. I get it. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month, everybody. But stop hiring men who don't want to have men conversations, right? Stop hiring men who want to cower to other men. That's not how it goes. And if that's the kind of coach that you are, then you're in the wrong business. Go be a high school coach somewhere, because you don't have to have everybody gets to make a team in high school, right? Everybody, you're forced to take a kid in high school. Go coach there. If that's how you want to handle things, and if that's what's going on inside that franchise, you probably won't see a lot of star players want to play here. But I don't know that we're in that case, and I think that this is probably one of those rare cases of Julio or a person not seeing what actually transpired, because they gave Julio everything he asked for. Wanted more money, he got it. Wanted more money again, he got it. Wanted to go chase a ring, they gave him that option, right? They gave him what he asked for, and be careful what you ask for, you just might get it, and he did, and he wasn't happy with the decisions. And so, did he, maybe he wanted Arthur Blank to beg him to stay, and that was never going to happen. So, I just feel like if you're going to tell a story, tell the entire story. And tell why you feel that way. And Julio obviously hasn't done that, and he probably won't do that. But when you do that, you allow people to speculate, and you allow people to make up stories, and you allow, radio hosts to say dumb shit like, you cost us a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, that one is going to be hard for me to get over. But even Roddy White was saying that he was trying to convince Julio to stay in Atlanta, Jeff, because when you work for an organization, whether it's professional sports or somewhere else, all your career, you build up sweat equity with that
Yeah.
company, with that team. Now he goes to Tennessee. He needs to, fly in his massage therapist, his PTs. Maybe he doesn't like the Tennessee facilities. Maybe it's not like in Atlanta, he had everything tailor made, ready to go for him. And then you go into a completely different situation. So I get that part of it too. Like I think it's a very underrated element. And sometimes athletes don't have a choice. The team that drafted you wants to move on from you, but if you have the choice, like Julio Jones had to go to Tennessee and prove himself all over again. Like it's not they're not getting the Julio Jones that was an Atlanta Falcon. And same thing for us, Jeff. If we went and moved to a different company, I mean, you switch jobs, it doesn't matter what the hell you did before then, right? Like you got to go, you got to bust your tail and prove to them what kind of employee they're getting. It's just the name of the game.
100%. 100%.